Nick's Big Pumpkin episode 5, ladies and gentlemen. This episode is all about greenhouse growing. So you can take a look at my greenhouse that I built right here. And we're kind of at the tail end of that chapter of growing. And I had never done it before, but I'm very pleased with the results and how it all went. You know, in stark comparison to the indoor growing where I effed up in almost every way imaginable. So, normally this greenhouse is on top of this plant. So, take a gander at this beauty right here, the Wallace 2344.5, thank you Ron. It is currently measuring out at, also the date right now is May 21st, I believe, and we're at pretty much exactly 7 feet. But yeah, everything's going really well, which I hate saying. You know, I might jinx myself. We have 2 plants though, remember? So come look at the second one over here. So this one, similarly a 2344.5 Wallace, is doing fine. It's doing a little worse though, which is totally expected because it was in a pot for a week longer than its brother, sister, whatever. So it has a little bit, you might not even be able to see it, but this stuff called chlorosis, which is when it loses the chlorophyll in its leaves. It's really mild, only on these 2 leaves, and then the new growth is nice and green. That's pretty expected because when you transplant your plants, they can go through this thing called transplant shock, which is basically just the plants are shocked that they're in this brand new environment, so they can get a little funky. So we're at the tail end of this chapter, of the hoop house growing chapter. But I thought I would just very briefly tell you what the day-to-day looked like in this, this little epoch. Pretty much every morning I would come out, the hoop houses would be on the plants. They're nice and light, they're PVC and just some plastic sheeting, so one person can lift them up. It's a little awkward, but it's not too bad. So I would roll down the sides of the tent, depending on how hot that day was going to be. If it was going to be cloudy and 60, I would just keep the hoop house, rolled up, protect the plant pretty much all day. If there was going to be any sun though, you have to take it off because it can be 60 degrees out, but if there's any sort of sun, you'll come back and see your plants are wilting and dying because it's 105 degrees in there. So it's much more about sun than it is about the ambient temperature. Then, depending on the day, I would give them a little feed of something. When the plants were smaller, I would give them humic fulvic and seaweed. Then I would give them about a half-strength dose of the Plant Marvel 1231-14 or something like that. High phosphorus for the roots. Essential and companion, about a full strength, half strength. With these biologicals, you don't have to be extremely precise. It's not like a chemical fertilizer where you can burn them. I gave them some root. I gave him all sorts of good stuff. Leave for work. Luckily I have my Giant Pumpkin live stream going 24/7, so I can check on that whenever I want. And yeah, I would come home, check on him again, put the grow tent back on, and that's that. So far, this has been really like low maintenance and fun in comparison to the indoor growing, which like sucked butt. It was like so stressful, dealing with all of that, and I was failing constantly. And then in comparison to what's coming up, which is unbelievable amounts of grueling labor. Hey, I almost forgot something kind of important, guys, right here. This is a heat lamp. And the point of this is it's connected to a thermostat system, which is usually hooked up to the top of the greenhouse. And that makes it so that this heat lamp comes on if it ever gets below 65 degrees in the greenhouse. So that's basically just how I kept it warm at night. Sometimes it would get down into the 40s. So yeah, that's how I controlled the temp. All right, a couple things that we got to do. Firstly, we have this weed sheeting down. That is not good, at least when it's around the plant, because we need our secondary roots to start shooting down into the ground. So we're gonna peel back our weed sheeting just around the plant. Then we're gonna take a pitchfork and loosen up the soil a bit. Ooh.
What is this doing, Mr. Nick?
Thanks for doxing me. Everybody knows my last name is now.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay, I'll bleep it. This is loosening up the soil because roots like to travel in the path of least resistance. So by doing this, we're just opening up a million little crevasses in the soil. Will make it easier for roots and also water and nutrients to penetrate down into the soil. What do you think of that? Isn't that a treat to know? Aren't you grinning ear to effing ear right now? It's freaking great to hear. So, yeah, but you gotta be extremely careful. And I have this awesome device coming in the mail called a broad fork. Probably will be here in a week. You guys aren't gonna believe it. How nutso that thing is. Yeah, I think that's good. Don't wanna do it too crazy, and I don't wanna disturb any of the existing root system. That would be a major blunder. Now that dirt is nice and loose, out here later on, not on camera, where we're really not close to the plant, I'm gonna really get in there and mix it up. But folks, you didn't come here to see that sort of monkey business, did you? You wanna see the cool shit, the wizard stuff where I mix up a cool potion and feed it to my little gremlin that I keep in my yard. So we're gonna do that, and we're gonna do vine burying. Stay tuned. Pumpkin plants, they don't just have one root system like a tomato plant or a sunflower or something. They actually have a main root system at their base, and then along the vine they shoot down secondary roots. Some people call them tap roots. And that's big. That's how this plant is able to absorb unbelievable amounts of nutrients and grow so quickly and grow a potentially, 1 ton fruit so quickly. Yeah, so we have a leaf, a tendril, a secondary vine, and a male flower. Could also be a female flower, but those will not show up until later. This is a little male flower. We'll talk about those later during the pollination episode. So, another thing that appears at each node is a secondary root potential, a spot for that potential. It just looks like a little white dot at each node. And so if we put some soil, keep it dark and moist, another root will pop out of the top of that. So at each node we'll have 2 tap roots instead of 1. Double the roots, double the nutrients theoretically. Next job is we're gonna put down some goodies and then we're gonna vine bury. So as far as goodies go, here's what I got. Firstly, Wow Soil and Plant Booster. This is an organic fertilizer mix that also has kelp and humic acid, some mycorrhiza in it. It's really good stuff. It's good for like kind of medium term organic fertilization because it's got a lot of blood meal and meat meal in it, which breaks down quicker than other organic fertilizers. And it's got all the other good stuff in it too. So at each node, we're just gonna give it probably about one of these big scoops, maybe about a half. Once again, we're not worried too much about being super precise. We're gonna give it a little bit of mycorrhiza, a little bit of azose. We are only gonna be burying the nodes at this and this vine. There's no other robust enough secondary roots for me to really be thinking about. Oh, and come over here. There's something interesting I gotta show you. Right here, you can actually see a secondary root coming down. This little white stalk. He made his way out, poked down into the earth, and now he's gonna start sucking up nutrients, which is exactly what we want. We just gotta get another one coming out of the top now by burying him. We're gonna bury our vine nodes. So, I just got a big old double handful of potting soil. I like this because it's light and fluffy and it drains pretty nicely, but it also holds on to enough moisture that it really helps to tease out that secondary root formation. So we'll give that one another kind of substantial double fistful. just so that it really is anchored down. And another big thing about this is that you got to do it to physically weigh down your plant. Because if there's a real windy day, these vines could possibly roll over, which is a very bad thing. You don't want that to happen. Nothing's more fun than this. Honest to God, that's something I'm really just thinking about. I'm like, this is so fun. I was honest to God thinking to myself, man, I really hope that I live a super long time so that I can grow pumpkins every year. There's a couple of 1908 Connolly's and there's a couple of 2240 Connolly's, and I'm hoping to keep those 2240 Connolly's as pollinators. Let me just see if I can actually get anything in the pot. Because the 2240 Connolly's have some pretty cool genetics, European in nature. So we're gonna try to plant 2 of those like off in the corner so we can have a cross of the Wallace and the Connolly, the 2 men who were so nice to me and gave me so much help when I reached out. So that's the least I can do. Make an awesome cross of their 2 plants. And as a little bonus, remember how in 2022 I did the mini pumpkins as our little side story? Well, this year I thought the pumpkin plants, they crawl along the ground in a 2D plane essentially. I want to conquer that 3rd dimension. And the way that I'm gonna do that is by growing these giant sunflowers. And my neighbor was nice enough to let me grow them in his little raised beds because he's got a nice little caged up area. And he also was nice enough to set up a rain barrel system for me, which is huge. Like next to Ron himself, my neighbor, I won't say his name or anything, I don't want to dox him. He's total MVP so far, tied with Ron himself. So if you're watching this, thank you so much. So we'll check in on those periodically. And yeah, that's that. There's a ton more that I have to talk about, but I think that's probably enough for this episode. So yeah, now it's all about acceleration. The plants are gonna start really accelerating now that they're putting down these secondary roots. We're gonna get a lot more vines, a lot more leaves. That'll cause things to accelerate even more. So yeah, it's gonna be really a treat to watch. So thank you guys very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. This is not good. That the pests are this brash, they don't even give a shit. Like, I'm 5 feet away from him and that's what it takes to scare him off? What the hell? They're so annoying.